Welcome to the Love Story with Lisa channel. Today, we're bringing you a brand new story. Because I curse my fiancé to death, and no one dares marry me. Just as I was about to become a nun, I was dragged into the palace as an imperial concubine. Preface: I am Yuzixing, a bearer of the comet's curse. My mother died when I was 3, my father when I was 5, and my paternal grandmother passed away when I was 6. Truly a phoenix among mortals, or rather, a comet of ill omen would be more accurate. My great-uncle risked everything to raise me until I was 13. But just when he had arranged a betrothal with the eldest son of the Tang household to the south, that young man fell into a high fever and died. Then when he arranged a match with the heir to the Marquis of West Capital, that man fell from his horse and perished. These events made the entire Great Yen dynasty recoil in terror at the sound of my name, and so there arose a saying in Great Yen, of the two surnamed Yu who could make children stop crying at night, one was General Yu who would come and beat you, and the other was Yuzixing who wanted to be your wife. General Yu was my great-uncle, so one could say the Yu family had quite a distinguished reputation for disciplining children. Of course, the soldiers under my great-uncle's command were beyond counting. Many of those who had entered life and death situations with him would not have been unwilling to sacrifice a son to fulfill my great-uncle's wish of marrying me off. But they were all men who had carried me on their backs and bought me candy when I was little. I could not bear to see them lose a son in their old age, and so I refused them one by one. I had long since thought I would never marry, and so at 18 I went myself to the Yuhua temple to ask the head priest whether there was any way for me to take holy vows and become a Taoist nun. Unexpectedly, I encountered the Empress Dowager there. We drank tea together, discussed the renovation plans for the temple, and she rewarded me with a jade bracelet. Then an imperial decree came down, and I suddenly became Yu Zhao Yi, imperial consort, in the rear palace. Zhao Yi ranks first among the 9 concubines. She is no nameless palace maid who dies and gets buried in a mass grave. She must be interred in the imperial mausoleum alongside the emperor. In other words, even in death I would have to disturb the ancestral tombs of someone else's family. So I was left wondering, was the emperor really the Empress Dowager's biological son? I had been waiting, and finally Yuzixing was about to be married off at last. The concubines in my great-uncle's rear court were overjoyed and got along with one another in a strangely harmonious way. Every single one of them dressed up in splendid finery to come and present me with gifts. They looked at my swarthy complexion and called it white as lard in winter. They saw my rounded figure and called it full and perfect. They saw my naturally curly hair and called it black as cascading lacquer. When these ladies applied every technique they had ever used on my great-uncle to me, I honestly could not hold up under it. So I said to my great-uncle, "The ladies are worried that once I leave there will be no one to manage the rear court. Their hearts are uneasy." My great-uncle was at the height of his career on the official path and had at least 20 more years ahead of him. Moreover, my younger brothers would eventually need to discuss marriages, and so many matters could not go without a female head of household. My great-uncle felt I spoke very reasonably, so before I left the household, he hastily took a new wife. She was the eldest legitimate daughter of the Liu family of Hedong, a widow who had observed chastity for her late husband, and she was also my maternal grandaunt by marriage. Perhaps because of this matter, even before I had entered the palace, rumors had already spread about me inside. Yuzixing had seized all authority in General Yu's rear court. All the concubines had to watch her expression just to get by. She truly was a cruel and vicious woman. Yuzixing skimped on the Yu household's expenses, making those living in the rear court miserable beyond words. Yet she herself played with birds and tended flowers, spending extravagantly without restraint. That's right, about to be married off, and she was still scheming to bring in a different widowed grandaunt to replace herself. Young in age yet deep in cunning. I did not know what to say. They had a point, and I had no way to refute it. As for how I learned of the rumors about me circulating inside the palace, this old servant entered the palace more than 40 years ago. And these ears are still sharp. The Granny Rome teaching me court etiquette, with her fair complexion and kind, pleasant face, had been specifically dispatched by the Empress Dowager. Inside and outside the palace, there was some resentment toward my entry as a cursed comet. The Empress Dowager sending Granny Rome was a way of quietly expressing her support. After entering the palace, this old servant will also come to serve Nyang Nyang. I was deeply grateful. Granny Rome, there is no need for such formality. I will be relying on Granny for protection once I am inside. Granny Rome pointed out one of my errors. The imperial decree has been issued. You should address yourself as Benkeng, this palace. Benkeng. The Empress Dowager has designated Shuiwei residence for Nyang Nyang's sole occupancy. It is not far from the Emperor's Qinyuan Palace or the Empress Dowager's Sinang Palace. It was renovated not long ago and is an excellent place to live. Once there, Nyang Nyang will be the mistress of the entire residence. Is there truly a mother-in-law in this world like the Empress Dowager? Not only did she not despise me for my curse, she gave me a bracelet, assigned me an attendant, further refurbished the house, and even arranged a good place to live. Could she possibly be my long-lost birth mother? Though I was very confident that I was the sort of young lady everyone should adore, flowers blooming wherever I went, creatures rejoicing at my passing, the maternal love the Empress Dowager showed me seemed a bit excessive. Granny Rome, just tell me plainly, what exactly did the Empress Dowager see in me? Granny Rome laughed and said, Nyang Nyang really knows how to tease this old servant. 3 months later, I entered the palace in the imperial carriage the Empress Dowager had specially dispatched. Coming in through the Qingke gate. Entering the palace with me that day was also the talented Lady Ning Sanyang, who had become famous throughout the Jiangnan region at 15. At 15, in the poetry tower of the Ning family, she had played the guqin while practicing calligraphy, music, chess, poetry, painting, wine, flowers, all things were accomplished. Then I thought of myself at 15, sitting every day in the Yu household's accounts room doing calculations, listening only to lessons about firewood, rice, oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar, and tea in return. Looking at Ning Sanyang when she came with me to greet the Empress Dowager, truly beautiful as a startled swan, graceful as a soaring dragon, dreamy as one riding the wind above the clouds, there was no more comparing. The more I compared, the more it hurt my self-esteem. It has been 2 years since the rear palace received new sisters. Rare indeed to welcome 2 sisters lovely as celestial maidens. The future will be lively here. But please, the Empress Dowager, just because you see new arrivals and smile does not mean you fail to see us old ones weeping. It was Xu Fei who had spoken. She wore a 24-panel long dress in moss green embroidered with golden qilin motifs, paired with a red gold jewelry set with rubies. She looked extremely wealthy and imposing. She was rather heavily made up, so one could not easily distinguish her true features, but she was indeed a great beauty. She was an old companion of the emperor from before his enthronement, having been originally selected as a household concubine. She was fortunate enough to have borne 2 princesses and 1 prince, and 2 years before, When the empress had passed away, Xu Fei had temporarily taken charge of managing the rear palace. The Empress Dowager laughed and scolded Xu Fei, being clever and still playing the pitiful one. Look how the new sisters just arrived and already you found fault with this seat. Above Xu Fei sat a woman in white palace robes with moon-bright eyes who glanced at me and Ning Sanyang from below. She wore no heavy makeup like Xu Fei. Her phoenix eyes carried a somewhat cold bearing, with a few small wrinkles at the outer corners. She was the daughter of a Wang family from Langyi, Xian Fei, the second-rank imperial consort, who had no children. I can only hope all of you will soon bear children to continue the imperial line. The first to speak was Rong Taining, the third-rank concubine, whose father was a county magistrate from the southwest. She had once borne a prince, but the prince had died early. This servant thinks Ning Maran resembles Wei Zhaoyuan from back then. Truly she lives up to her fame as Jiangnan's most celebrated talented woman. Next was Tsong Taining, the third-rank concubine, daughter of a capital merchant family, who had no children. Tattle on elder sister teasing younger sister again. Ning Maran is young and beautiful, how could younger sister compare? Last to speak was Wei Zhaoyuan, the fourth-rank concubine, who had originally been a dance performer at the Suyu Pavilion, and had one prince. Thank goodness Granny Rong had tutored me. Without that, the sheer number of women in this palace would truly have been enough to give me a splitting headache. After an hour of small talk, the women, tired of the hidden battles being waged beneath the surface, retired one by one to rest and recover their strength for the next round. As for the Empress Dowager, she loved me from the moment we met and kept me behind to dine alone with her. Simply by virtue of the Empress Dowager's open favoritism, that very night the emperor came to my Shuiwei residence. How to describe the first night the emperor and I slept in the same bed? One can only say that we both tried very hard. The emperor worked hard to conceal his disappointment. And I worked hard to conceal my boredom. I felt the emperor was a sickly weakling, pale, scrawny, not a shred of muscle, the type my great-uncle could kill with a single finger, 2 at a time. The emperor, for his part, was surely feeling that I was dark-skinned and fat, the type who, if not for the Empress Dowager's help, could never in a lifetime hope to be visited. The next morning I had washed my face, combed my hair, and finished dressing before the emperor slowly woke. Has the Zhao Yi always risen so early? Why would it not be early? At this hour I would normally have already risen, arranged breakfast, seen my great-uncle off to court, and been midway through receiving the stewards who lined up to report on household matters. Emperors truly were different. Having the court hall right at your door, of course one could sleep a little later. If not for the fact that 1 year earlier I had taken advantage of Prince Chen's assets being confiscated to pull some strings and buy Prince Chen's mansion, which was a bit closer to the imperial city, my great-uncle would have had to rise even earlier. Housing prices in the capital increased year after year. Good locations could not be bought even with silver once they were gone. Fortunately I was Yuzixing, quick and clever, and secured a good house earlier than the governor of Gansu. But just thinking about where I was currently living, the best located residence in all of Great Yen, I instantly lost all motivation to work harder. The emperor had no intention of taking breakfast at my place. After his attendants helped him dress, he departed. I happily saw him off, turned around, and saw Granny Rong leading the servants of Shuiwei residence in. Shuiwei residence was smaller than a proper palace building. It had space for 2 masters total, and so its allocated staff were 4 miscellaneous eunuchs, 6 palace maids, 1 chief steward, and 1 granny. But in practice, beyond my personal maid Fu Bao whom I had brought from home, and Granny Rong sent by the Empress Dowager, there were also 6 miscellaneous eunuchs, 8 palace maids, and a chief steward. If these were people the Empress Dowager had sent, I would have nothing to say. But the Empress Dowager had not sent them. Currently the person managing palace affairs was Xu Fei. Granny Rong only told me, "This does not comply with regulations," without explaining her thoughts clearly. This was a difficult situation. After last night, I had more or less ruled out the path of becoming a favored concubine. The Empress Dowager's coattails were also not so easy to cling to. And Xu Fei? I was not even planning on clinging to the Empress Dowager's coattails, let alone hers. Go to the Office of Imperial Household Affairs and say the personnel assigned to Shuyue residence were insufficient. Was she not afraid of Xu Fei Nyang's reprimand? Tell them to reassign the palace maids and eunuchs today. The palace maids and eunuchs, terrified, knelt down. The chief steward thought a moment and also knelt, saying, "Nyang, what do you mean?" Xu Fei Nyang favors newcomers and arranged for servants to come here. Nyang should not disappoint Xu Fei's good intentions. I ignored this eunuch, just called out, "Fu Bao, will you not go to the Office of Imperial Household Affairs?" The chief steward, humiliated at being ignored, kowtowed and then departed. Well, at least he had some backbone. Granny Rong smiled as she helped me back to my room. Nyang should rest and recover today. Rest how? I have plenty of time to rest. 3 days after I had been visited, the emperor went to Ning Marin's place. That time was truly formidable. He stayed there 5 continuous nights, rewarding her without pause. 5 days later, Ning Guiran was directly elevated to Bao Lin, only half a rank below me. Slap, slap, my face truly stung. Day 1 of entering the palace, visited. Day 2, offended the most senior sister of the rear palace. Day 3, completely overshadowed by the fellow concubine who entered at the same time. Then for 3 months afterward, the emperor had completely forgotten even which direction Shuyue residence's gate opened. I truly should be grateful for the Empress Dowager's love, which had made me the focus of rear palace gossip, and grateful also to the emperor for being so unsparing of my feelings. In the rear palace, lacking good looks truly meant having no standing as a person. Granny Rong brought me a warm cup of goat's milk. Nyang has been resting for 3 months. It is time to go out for a walk. I drank the goat's milk. Curled inside my soft, smooth shoe brocade blanket, content in my own little world. Going out is not possible. The little palace maids and young eunuchs of Shuyue residence were all darling and knew how to talk. I like this place very much. If Nyang does not go out, the Empress Dowager will be unhappy. Granny Rong still wore her smile, yet I sensed a thread of coldness in it. Fu Bao, go find that bright yellow dress of mine. Tomorrow I will wear it to pay my respects to the Empress Dowager. Granny Rong continued her hints. I hear the emperor is at Sinang Palace at this hour. Fu Bao, never mind searching. Your mistress was born beautiful, wearing anything looks good. Let us go pay our respects right now. Granny Rong said approvingly, the Empress Dowager can see Nyang's filial heart. I truly was a filial and obedient young lady. When the emperor saw me again, he stood stunned for a moment. I was certain he was trying to think who I was. The Empress Dowager affectionately bade me sit beside her, so the emperor and I were forced to sit face to face looking at each other. The problem was that he truly was not my type, and I could not see anything particularly special about him. Quite awkward, in truth. The eunuch behind the emperor held up an embroidered picture, a piece of Suzhou embroidery depicting Pengzhu, a figure associated with longevity. Objects of this sort had fine meaning, and the embroidery technique was exquisite. It was very suitable to hang in a room. Wei Zhaoyuan knew the Empress Dowager favored Suzhou embroidery, and it just happened that her family had found a master Suzhou embroiderer. It took several requests before she obtained this embroidery to present to the Empress Dowager. So she had come to put in a good word for her little sweetheart. The Empress Dowager narrowed her eyes and said indifferently, "Not bad. Her origins are lowly, it must have been hard for her to find this. It is unlikely to please this seat's eye. The quality of an object matters less than a vicious heart." The Empress Dowager laughed and suddenly asked me, "Why did you remember to visit this old grandmother today?" "Because Granny Rong forced me to come, of course." I flattered her. This seat was thinking of the Empress Dowager every moment and simply could not delay any longer, came running right over. If I had known the emperor was here, I would at least have dressed up a bit. "There is no need for makeup. You look beautiful just like this." I also thought I looked rather beautiful. What a blind pair of eyes the emperor had. The emperor saw me and the Empress Dowager talking happily while his own affairs were nowhere near settled. Left with no choice, he cut in, "With the Empress Dowager having Zhao Yi, does she no longer need this son? There is something your son wishes to ask of the Empress Dowager." The Empress Dowager stopped smiling. "Wei Zhaoyuan has been diagnosed as pregnant a few days ago. She is still young and cannot manage on her own. That seat there wishes to ask the Empress Dowager to arrange someone to care for her." Wei Zhaoyuan is truly a bit out of place. She is only a Zhaoyuan, her origins are not good. She should not be raising a prince on her own, as Xu Fei did in those early years when the former empress was still alive and a princess was still raised by the late empress. Now relying on the emperor's favor, raising a child on her own, fine. But now she is pregnant with a second child, and wants to send the elder one to the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager's status, what kind of child should she be raising? This Zhao Yuan's appetite is not small. With the status of Zhao Yuan, she should not be raising a prince. The Empress Dowager said, previously whoever did this, regarded as her not understanding things. Now that she has realized it is not too late, the Empress Dowager suddenly smiled at me. A powerful sense of unease surged within me. Zixing is the head of the 9 concubines. The Yu family is upright through and through, perfectly suitable to raise a prince. The third prince, Shenji, will be entrusted to Zixing's care. Mother, the emperor trusts your judgment. Hand Jishi over to Shuyue residence. If you do not trust this seat, then this seat is too lazy to trouble ourselves. The emperor's expression went cold as iron. The Empress Dowager was calmly composed. Granny Rong smiled broadly as a flower. And I could only half laugh and half cry. Reality had taught us in the palace, don't run about randomly, or you will very easily end up picking up someone's son. I finally remembered what the Empress Dowager had said to me at Yuhua Temple, and finally understood what she had seen in me. I hear that since you came to your great-uncle's household, 7 younger brothers were born in succession. One can see that people calling you a jinx to your blood relatives is incorrect. On the contrary, You are a lucky star. The Empress Dowager smiled as she teased me. My great-uncle campaigned all year. My grandaunt had died many years before with no remarriage, and so the rear court had been restless. General, you had been severely wounded 4 years earlier. I heard you sought out a divine physician from Nan Huang and saved your great-uncle's life. Good thing heaven was merciful. That year the Grand Secretary of State had asked to retire to his hometown, and you blocked his path at the entrance to the Ting Shirli and stopped him from leaving, insisting on keeping his second son as a tutor for your younger brothers. Your nephews are unruly troublemakers. There was nothing else to be done, you only wanted to find them a good teacher. Little General, you at 12 used a stratagem to burn the enemy's supplies at Yenyu Pass and earned a battle merit. Yet I hear it was you who arranged to send him to the frontier to experience life. That was his elder brother in the capital who rode a horse and injured someone. If left for great-uncle to discipline, he might well lose half his life. So I sent him to the frontier myself. Last year you competed with the governor of Gansu for Prince Chen's mansion, saying it was to make it easier for your great-uncle to go to court. Did you know the governor's mansion in the capital is so cramped that concubines have to lay their bedding on the floor? This seat purchased it through proper legal procedures. Ha ha ha, Zixing, this seat truly likes your character very much. You like my character? I do not believe you. I can see it now, you simply want me to be a wet nurse for your household. I do not like you anymore. Empress Dowager, you are no longer my long-lost birth mother with no blood connection. In truth, before cursing to death the eldest son of the Tang household and the heir of the Marquis of West Capital, I had been considered quite sought after in Great Yan's marriage market. All the wives of prominent families had liked me, just like the Empress Dowager. There were times when I myself thought I must be this charming. In the words of the aristocratic ladies, Yu Zixing was born with the fate of a principal wife. But no matter how skilled at managing a household, no matter how well one taught one's younger brothers, the premise was that the man had to have the fate to enjoy it. On this point, the Empress Dowager had a very high spirit of fighting against destiny. She would rather her son die than have the rear palace fall into chaos. When the third Prince Shenji was brought to Shuyue residence, Wei Zhaoyuan led the emperor there to make a show of force, to intimidate me. A family of 3, father loving and son filial, happy and harmonious, and I stood to one side, genuinely ruining the scene. Wei Zhaoyuan wept while making eyes at the emperor, on the one hand reluctant to part with her son, on the other clinging to the emperor. As a concubine, her professional skills were truly superior and her sense of responsibility truly noble. Previously Tsong Taining had said Ning Baolin resembled Wei Zhaoyuan. I had not noticed it then. Perhaps because at the time in Sinang Palace all the concubines had to maintain a dignified and upright bearing. Now meeting Wei Zhaoyuan in her coy, tender manner, there were indeed several similarities to Ning Baolin. The emperor had favored Ning Baolin for a time, yet still visited Wei Zhaoyuan's place more frequently. The palace gossip was that though Ning Baolin was from a good family, ultimately she could not match the tricks learned at the Siyu Pavilion. Actually, I myself was not overly particular about matching family backgrounds. Were not the rear palace consorts all daughters of one sort or another? It was just that this Wei Zhaoyuan was truly rather unsavory. Let me put it this way, if she were in my great-uncle's rear court causing trouble, within 3 days I would have thrown her out of the mansion. This rear palace really was in need of an empress to preside over things so chaotic. The emperor looked toward my Shuyue residence and instructed, though she is raising Ji, you should frequently bring the child to see its mother. Do not sever the bond between mother and child. The Empress Dowager has always praised your virtue and conduct. Even without this seat saying it, you should understand. Yes. Ji, if anyone here bullies you, you are this seat's son. No one dares. This child understands. Wei Zhaoyuan took my hand and said sorrowfully, "Zixing Mimi must understand the heart of this mother. Mimi, I am the head of the 9 concubines. Even if you are older than me, you should address me as elder sister. When you meet me, you must salute me properly. Since you are being favored right now, I shall temporarily overlook this for you." After finally seeing off the emperor and Wei Zhaoyuan, I asked Shenji, "What does the third prince usually do in the afternoon? What would you like for supper?" Before Shenji could reply, his wet nurse had already rushed to say, "Our third prince in the afternoon." I asked the prince, "Why is the wet nurse answering?" The wet nurse immediately fell silent. "Third prince, you must remember, as the master, when facing others, only when the other person is not worthy of you opening your mouth should you need an attendant to convey your words on your behalf. I am Zhao Yi, the prince has no rank yet. At present, the prince should still speak for himself." Shenji was only 3 years old, big, round eyes, just like Wei Zhaoyuan's, delicate features, far too pretty, looking rather like a sweet little girl. "In the afternoon I would like to practice calligraphy. For supper I would like to eat simple food." I looked at Shenji's tiny pomegranate-like hands, then at his thin, frail little body. "Do you like writing characters, little one?" Mother said every day I must write 10 pages of large characters. Still so little, and writing 10 pages of large characters every day, in fewer than 5 years, the hands would be ruined. Oh, that will not do then. Today's Shuyue residence is quite in disarray. Your things are not yet properly arranged. Unsuitable for calligraphy. Come follow me to the garden, we'll catch caterpillars, shall we? But Fubao, go prepare a short outfit for the third prince. Yes, Nyang. Without paying attention to the indignant wet nurse beside Shenji, I led the boy outside to the garden, where we dug soil, pulled weeds, and scattered lime. Then we went back inside to wash up. For supper I also did not feed Shenji the way Wei Zhaoyuan had been feeding him. She said she ate plainly to maintain her figure. Small children cannot eat like adults. I encouraged Shenji, the eldest boy in our family, when he was born, weighed only just over 3 jin. Everyone said he could never be raised. And yet he ate so heartily that by 8 he was already taller than me. You too must eat well, and only then can you grow into a man of impressive stature and might. Did Nyang say he is the little general you? I hear the general has heaven-sent strength and already went to battle at 8 to fight enemies. Shenji's eyes shone bright. Children always admire heroes. That is all outside rumor. When he went to the frontier he was already 12. But right now he truly has earned many military merits fighting against the enemy. If I eat more, can I become like him? As for why Yuzidu is tall and imposing, it is because my great-uncle is tall and imposing. As for you, Shenji, look at your fragile mother. Then look at your thin father too. I am afraid it will be difficult for you. If you will not eat your meals properly, you certainly cannot expect otherwise. Shenji, frightened, quickly scooped up several mouthfuls of rice. After supper, Shinji's room was also tidied up. I led him to look at my own bedchamber, 2 paintings and a calligraphy piece to keep, the rest to be stored away. Ji, you must understand that paintings and calligraphy are not for showing off. One should appreciate them at the right time and in the right setting. And then they have meaning. This potted plant goes outside the room, it obstructs the feng shui. Take from the storeroom the blue-green bed curtains. Using dark red in this heat is stifling. As I assigned the palace servants of Shuyue residence to tidy up and arrange everything, Fubao came in just at the right moment carrying warm goat's milk. Shinji was served chrysanthemum tea to aid digestion. When the palace servants finished rearranging the bedchamber, I asked Shinji, "Do you like this arrangement? If not, we must wait until tomorrow to change it again. Remember, next time, if there is something I have arranged that displeases you, you must speak up right away. Not wait until I have finished speaking to open your mouth. It wastes everyone's effort. I like this room. Normally when you sleep, who keeps watch at night? The wet nurses." I told Shinji's personal wet nurse, "This is also your first day here, you may not yet be familiar. I will assign a palace maid to keep night watch with you. Later, once you are accustomed, you will take turns. If anything urgent arises, find Fubao. Absolutely do not venture out on your own." Acknowledged, Nyang Nyang. This wet nurse had also become considerably more respectful toward me, which was an improvement. The third prince, before sleeping, has always had 2 wet nurses, 2 palace maids, and 1 eunuch keeping watch. Tonight so many people have suddenly been reduced, this servant fears the third prince may not be accustomed to it. I gave a slight smile. If you asked me, I would not mind telling you plainly. Whatever the staffing arrangements may be elsewhere in the palace, Shuyue residence absolutely does not permit overstepping. A prince without rank is by regulation entitled to 1 wet nurse for instruction and care, 2 palace maids, and 1 eunuch. From the way you speak and move, the third prince absolutely cannot have only this small number of attendants. This is disregarding palace rules, a serious impropriety. This servant would not dare. I asked Shinji, "Does the prince think this seat's words are correct?" "I do not know. Today I am teaching you this. Wherever you are, you must keep to the rules of that place. Without rules, nothing can be accomplished. I have already said clearly that you are permitted only 1 person on night watch, so even if you cry and make a fuss, there is still only 1 person. But all the imperial brothers have many attendants keeping watch at night. Other people break the rules. You follow their example, you rely on there being safety in numbers and use that to escape punishment. Do you still look like a prince?" Shinji was made to flush red by my words. I had disciplined many unruly little ones at home for years. One Shinji was truly nothing by comparison. I had barely finished disciplining him when I was already pinching his cheeks. "Sleep early. Tomorrow morning I will make you rice cakes shaped like qilin. The mold was specially carved for me by someone at the frontier, lifelike as real ones. When the time comes, you can dot the eyes yourself with cherry blossom juice." "Really? Really?" Shinji obediently got into bed. Just before leaving I added, "If you miss your mother, do not hide under the covers crying alone. At worst, I will take you to see her tomorrow." "Yes," Shinji answered in a slightly choked voice. Shinji was truly very easy to raise. at least compared to the boys at home, much more obedient. Every day, feed him well, read him books, play war strategy board games, solve the 9-link puzzle, make flower lanterns, pull weeds and prune the garden flowers. Before bed, bathe him and then tuck him into bed. Wei Xiaoyuan had made him practice calligraphy, but his small hands could not even hold a rabbit hair brush steadily. So I had someone make a smaller brush for him to trace characters. My mother had been an acknowledged calligraphy master greatly praised by the late emperor. She had written many copybooks for my practice over the years. The boys of the Yu family had all used them. Now it was Shinji's turn. I also planned to have someone clear and fill in the lotus pond in Shuyue residence so he could learn to swim. The old saying goes, better to be skilled in one craft than mediocre in 9. Knowing many useful skills does no harm. This time Wei Xiaoyuan was seriously unwell and did not step outside her door. I heard she had swollen up so badly that even the emperor did not dare visit her. This too is the sorrow of women in the rear palace. When looks fade, love fades with them. So I only took Shinji to visit her a few times, and that was enough. In the palace the rumor spread that I treated the third prince harshly. But every time he came with me to pay respects to the Empress Dowager, everyone could see that Shinji was growing healthier and more lively each day. No one could accuse me of abusing the prince. But now I was no longer the center of gossip. The most prominent woman in the rear palace had become Ning Baolin. Perhaps the emperor had always favored the type of gorgeous and enchanting beauty. When she first entered the palace, Ning Baolin carried the cold, aloof beauty of a talented woman, not as alluring and endearing as Wei Xiaoyuan, and so the emperor had favored Wei Xiaoyuan more. But after Wei Xiaoyuan became pregnant, Ning Baolin seemed to undergo a sudden awakening. At the Duanwu Festival Palace dinner, she performed a dance called Chang'e Worships the Moon, wearing a snow-white feathered costume with scarlet sleeves that accentuated her slim, supple waist. That entire evening the emperor looked at no other woman. Now that was what I called professional. I brought Shinji to sit and watch the dance, and asked him, "Is Ning Baolin beautiful, or am I beautiful?" Shinji squeezed his eyes shut and answered reluctantly, "Zhaoyi Nyang is beautiful." If I and Ning Baolin both fell into the water, which of us would you save? Can I please not answer that? You cannot. But Nyang said she would teach me to swim. I rolled my eyes. There you have it. Men are all visual creatures, only liking pretty young ladies. That evening the emperor held Ning Baolin as they returned to the palace. Having eaten a bit too much, I walked Shinji back to Shuyue residence for a post-meal stroll. Nyang, tomorrow I want to go see mother. Why? I am afraid she will be sad. Shinji fell silent, lowered his head as though searching for gold on the ground. I cannot make her happy. In this rear palace, no one can make her happy. Jishi, when a person entrusts all their joy and sorrow to another person, that person will never be truly happy again. For example, if she became the empress, Fu Bao looked around nervously, confirming there were no eyes or ears from other palaces, but the emperor had gone to find Ning Baolin. Could she prevent him from going? Shinji muttered, "Mother says as long as I work hard, rubbish." Shinji had grown accustomed to my blunt speech. Fu Bao, on the other hand, reminded me, Nyang, the prince is still out here. Shinji, do you know what a bird is? There is a type of bird that cannot fly high itself, so it lays an egg and forces the egg to fly hard. This is fine, but then to blame the egg for its own inability to fly high, there is no such reasoning in this world. Zhao Yi Niang Niang, you are scolding my mother. You heard it? Good that you heard. These words were heard only by me, Fu Bao, and you. If they spread outside, it was you who said them. Shenji answered reluctantly. Not long after, Ning Bao Lin was found to be with child, elevated to the rank of Ning Taining, one rank above me. At the same time, Wei Zhaoyuan suffered a miscarriage, a fully formed child. Shenji, dressed neatly and properly, came before me with an expressionless face and said, I wish to return. I had been raising Shenji for nearly half a year. He very rarely brought up on his own initiative that he wanted to visit Wei Zhaoyuan, and never said he wanted to return. I took his hand. Let us go see Wei Zhaoyuan first. It had been several months since we'd visited. Wei Zhaoyuan's chambers were no longer as lively as before. Even with the miscarriage, she had received only a few boxes of medicine from the emperor along with words of comfort conveyed through a eunuch. The emperor had not even come in person to visit. I heard that today Ning Taining was also feeling slightly unwell. Half the imperial physicians from the imperial medical office were waiting at Ning Taining's side. Clearly, Wei Zhaoyuan had made herself up. It had not been long since the miscarriage, and her hair was still clean and floating, but her eyes were still red and swollen. She had tried to apply powder to her face, only her entire body had bloated up, and no matter how hard she tried to conceal it, she could not hide the haggard, drawn look. The moment she saw Shenji and me, Wei Zhaoyuan reached out her bright red lacquered hand and shrieked as if half mad, Ji Shi, my Ji Shi, come quickly, mother cannot live without you, come back to me. Shenji faltered for a moment, still wanting to go to her. I grabbed the collar of his robe and asked in a low voice, you still want to go over there? She is my mother. I sighed. Children who are too soft-hearted are not necessarily a good thing. I stood several yards away and asked, Wei Zhaoyuan, looking like this, what will you think when the emperor comes? Wei Zhaoyuan said with streaming tears, the emperor will not come anymore. Will not come anymore. I thought to myself, truly useless. I had never liked weak people. It was like those years during the battle at Xiangliang, soldiers of the Allied army fleeing in panic, the prefect leaping into a well to kill himself, the admiral running away in terror. Back then my father had covered my eyes to shield me from the sight of blood and flesh flying outside, and said to me again and again, Father would rather die than surrender, you too must never yield. Shenji's weakness was mostly due to Wei Zhaoyuan's upbringing. This was a fine opportunity. I must teach Shenji a lesson. Shenji, wait 3 months. If you still want to return then, I will absolutely not stop you. Before 3 months were up, Wei Zhaoyuan took palace maids to go boating on the Tai Lake and happened to run into the emperor and Ning Taining out for a pleasure outing. Wei Zhaoyuan was no longer slender as she had once been. She wore a ginger yellow jacket with a lapis lazuli collar necklace, looking full and lovely, radiating a beauty that was at once innocent and alluring, drawing the emperor's eyes irresistibly. Ning Taining, who had originally arranged a dance performance at the Shiyu Pavilion to present to the emperor, was instead treated to Wei Zhaoyuan playing the pipa for accompaniment. Her fair, slender white fingers struck the strings and also struck at the emperor's heart. The emperor looked at Ning Taining beside him. Though pregnant, she was still thin and sickly, naturally no match for Wei Zhaoyuan's 10,000 kinds of charm. So that night Wei Zhaoyuan was favored again. The next day Wei Zhaoyuan sent palace maids to take Shenji home. Shenji asked me, "You were the one who planned all this, were you not?" "Yes." "Why did you do this?" "To let you see the truth clearly." The small face of Shenji briefly showed 1,000 emotions. Finally he smiled, "You win. I will not go back anymore." After meeting a person who is strong, who would still be willing to be mediocre. Yu Zixing did not want Shenji to end up like that. Either, nor did she want the children of this world. Teaching children was all the same. Wei Zhaoyuan had been restored to favor. Now was the time to settle old accounts. Wei Zhaoyuan, from the time the former empress was still alive, had monopolized imperial favor. After the empress passed away, the remaining women in the rear palace were mostly past their prime. Only she was at the height of her youth and beauty, and had furthermore given birth to the third prince, so she had held exclusive imperial favor for several years. The former empress had not died a glorious death. The emperor was still haunted by the question of establishing a new empress, and perhaps did not want to establish another one. And so the rear palace had just drifted along in this manner. The Empress Dowager had always been patient, but her patience too had its limits. She had once given Xu Fei an opportunity, but Xu Fei had been extravagant and unworthy. She had also given Xian Fei an opportunity, but Xian Fei was so arrogant that she had enemies throughout the rear palace, truly foolish. This selection of new palace beauties had brought in both me and Ning Sanyang. Her fair, slender white fingers struck the strings and also struck at the emperor's heart. The emperor looked at Ning Taining beside him. Though pregnant, she was still thin and sickly, naturally no match for Wei Zhaoyuan's 10,000 kinds of charm. So that night Wei Zhaoyuan was favored again. The next day Wei Zhaoyuan sent palace maids to take Shenji home. Shenji asked me, "You were the one who planned all this, were you not?" "Yes." "Why did you do this?" "To let you see the truth clearly." The small face of Shenji briefly showed 1,000 emotions. Finally he smiled, "You win. I will not go back anymore." After meeting a person who is strong, who would still be willing to be mediocre. Yu Zixing did not want Shenji to end up like that. Either, nor did she want the children of this world. Teaching children was all the same. Wei Zhaoyuan had been restored to favor. Now was the time to settle old accounts. Wei Zhaoyuan, from the time the former empress was still alive, had monopolized imperial favor. After the empress passed away, the remaining women in the rear palace were mostly past their prime. Only she was at the height of her youth and beauty, and had furthermore given birth to the third prince, so she had held exclusive imperial favor for several years. The former empress had not died a glorious death. The emperor was still haunted by the question of establishing a new empress, and perhaps did not want to establish another one. And so the rear palace had just drifted along in this manner. The Empress Dowager had always been patient, but her patience too had its limits. She had once given Xu Fei an opportunity, but Xu Fei had been extravagant and unworthy. She had also given Xian Fei an opportunity, but Xian Fei was so arrogant that she had enemies throughout the rear palace, truly foolish. This selection of new palace beauties had brought in both me and Ning Sanyang. It happened that Ning Taining was about to give birth. Waiting only for her to deliver a prince, both beloved consorts would be elevated at once. What a fine thing that would be. 3 months later, Ning Taining gave birth to a little princess. The emperor, pleased, had the Office of Imperial Household Affairs think of a title for Ning Taining. Unexpectedly, the Empress Dowager directly issued a decree: Yu Zhaoyi has merit in rearing the third prince, elevated to the rank of noble consort Yu, with the title Gi. Receiving the imperial decree, I happily bit into a slice of yellow melon sent from the Office of Imperial Household Affairs. The Empress Dowager was truly mischievous. This title was one the emperor had planned to bestow on Ning Taining. Fu Bao was also overjoyed. This is praise of Nyang Nyang's dignified and proper bearing. Granny Rong came to congratulate as well. Congratulations, Nyang Nyang. At third rank Xing San, you now have the right to assist in managing the rear palace. The Empress Dowager truly places great hopes in you. The piece of melon in my mouth suddenly no longer tasted good. Shenji returned, having played shuttlecock with the little eunuchs, sweat all over his head. He had intended to come pay his respects to me, but seeing my expression was unhappy, he dared not say anything and just stood pitifully at the door. I glanced at Shenji. He tried his best to open his eyes wide and look adorable. Your mother is about to be promoted, Shenji. Whose mother? I ground my teeth and told both of them to put down their pieces of melon. I instructed Fu Bao to prepare my ceremonial escort. I wanted to go thank the Empress Dowager. This time when I came to see the Empress Dowager, Xu Fei was also present, dignified and stately in bearing, along with the two princesses she had borne. The two little princesses played happily before and after the Empress Dowager, and the atmosphere in and around the hall was full of joy. Before entering, I had already composed my expression into one of happiness. I thanked her properly. Xu Fei kept praising the Empress Dowager for loving me, yet her eyes concealed a deep wariness. The Empress Dowager paid it no mind and announced, "This seat has a few words for Zixing. Xu Fei, take the children back first." 1 Xu Fei, 1 Zixing. The Empress Dowager's favoritism was truly as plain as day. As they left with their mother, the eldest princess turned her head to look at me. Though still young, her eyes shone with a flash of resentment. They had all just departed from Sinang Palace, which had grown quiet. Female officials served tea and then silently withdrew. In the hall only I and the Empress Dowager remained. The Empress Dowager poured me a cup of tea and savored it at leisure. Her gestures were free and natural, bearing a slightly Weijin air. Who could have imagined that the Empress Dowager had once been the daughter of a butcher, having entered the palace as a palace maid, given birth to 5 princesses and 1 prince, outlasted countless young ladies of noble birth, and finally risen to the position of Empress Dowager. And yet such a woman, when facing those of similarly lowly birth like Xu Fei and Wei Zhaoyuan, showed not the slightest sympathy or favoritism. One could see how ruthlessly the rear palace had tempered a person's character. The late empress left early. This seat has no qualms about saying aloud the things that would make the dead uneasy. As a wife in a prominent household, she would have been fine. But as empress, she was far inferior. I fell silent, not daring to say a word. Xu Fei entered the palace young. Though she was from an official family, she had never experienced hardship. She confined her own prospects, thinking that luxury and wealth would make people respect her. Truly ordinary and petty. Xu Fei has been eliminated. As for Xian Fei, she has read too many books and become foolish. That is truly the case. Now Xu Fei and Xian Fei have both been eliminated. The next one is you. I hastily laughed and tried to ingratiate myself. Nyang Nyang, this consort truly has no ambitions. How could a person without great aspirations bother to work so hard to find good teachers for the you children? How could she spend all her parents' inheritance looking after the families of fallen soldiers? How could she bear to send the younger brother she had grown up with to Yenyu Pass, the land of piled corpses and seas of blood? Zixing, this seat never misjudges people. But what if what this consort does falls short of the Empress Dowager's expectations? If Fu Bao were here, she would surely rush forward to cover my mouth. But I had been suppressing this question ever since before entering the palace, and until now. It was just like what my great-uncle had said, the soldiers under my command will go into battle for me, not because I am General Yu, but because I can show them a clear path to promotion and wealth and glory. And as for me, I truly did not understand why I had been swept into this rear palace vortex. What could I gain from it? The Empress Dowager curved her lips in a slight smile, a faint elegance surfacing. Sacrificing yourself alone for the benefit of great Yen, is there anything that cannot be done? Sacrificing yourself alone for the benefit of great Yen, is there anything that cannot be done? Correct, what cannot be done? I bowed my head and returned the salute. Zixing will do her very best. On the day the little princess of Ning Taining turned 1 month old, Ning Taining was elevated to Shu Taining, while Wei Zhaoyuan was also promoted to Wei Zhaoyi. After the full-month banquet, since Shu Taining could not yet be visited, the emperor allowed Wei Zhaoyi to come to him. During their intimate moments, Wei Zhaoyi had said she wished to bring Shinji back from my quarters. The next day the emperor, without consulting the Empress Dowager, came on his own to my place. When the emperor arrived, I was having Shinji try on his winter clothes. The boy had grown a bit, so the outfit made by the Office of Imperial Household Affairs was slightly tight. Shinji was changing clothes and reciting the clan genealogy. When he got to the section on Chen Lu's lineage, he stumbled and frantically scratched his head. The emperor then continued from where he had left off, Chen Lu Zi Chun, and recited the next line. Everyone in the hall quickly saluted the emperor. The emperor looked at Shinji, plump and white, and nearly failed to recognize this as his own third prince. Why teach him to recite the clan genealogy? Shinji answered respectfully, Mother said that next year when this son goes to the imperial spring hunt, this son will meet many people. If this son does not memorize the genealogies of the great families, this son will become a laughingstock. You are a prince, if you don't recognize a few officials, so what? Stop learning all those effeminate gestures of women. Was the emperor looking for a quarrel on purpose? I bowed my head in silence. Shinji, even when the emperor reprimanded him, showed not the slightest sign of wavering. After all, normally I disciplined him no less than this. In fact, I was usually stricter than even the emperor. This son begs Father Emperor's pardon. This son believes that a sovereign ruler who governs all under heaven and shepherds the people, if he does not know his ministers well, how can he understand his subjects? The ancients said, the people are most important, the state comes second, the ruler is least. The imperial clan must especially understand thoroughly the great noble families and be familiar with the lives of the common people, otherwise the eyes will be covered and the state will be imperiled. You are most daring. The emperor let out a furious roar. The palace servants in Shuyue residence fell in terror to the ground. Shinji looked at me once, then finally knelt slowly. This son's knowledge is shallow, this son knows he has made a mistake. The emperor stared deeply at me, even that first night when I had served him, He had not looked at me this carefully. You taught him this, did you not? I too made a full salute and knelt. This consort only taught the third prince to recite the genealogies of great families. I feared the third prince might look at the rise and fall of these great houses and naturally come to understand certain truths on his own. The emperor walked to the writing desk and casually flipped through a few books. He left both me and Shinji kneeling to one side. These are in the hand of the Jia family master. In reply to the emperor, the Jia family master is this consort's mother. The emperor paused for a moment before saying, "This seat almost forgot. General Yu is only the uncle by marriage. You are the daughter of Chong Wen-gong." This seat had already heard that Chong Wen-gong, when he served in the Yusher Terrace in those days, was so sharp-tongued he talked an imperial censor to death. Now having given birth to a daughter, she is indeed just as incisive and sharp. The air was filled with the sound of suppressed breathing. Predictably, it was our fool Fu Bao, "Your Majesty. Please watch your words. Your Majesty, please watch your words." I dare guarantee I was the first person in the world to say this to him, so that the emperor could not react in an instant, and Shinji gaped open-mouthed, unable to hide his terror. "What did you say?" This consort said, "Your Majesty, please watch your words." The world suddenly fell silent. Then it exploded. The emperor slammed my mother's book hard onto the ground. "An imperial concubine who does not respect her sovereign shall be punished." Before the emperor had even finished speaking, I had already of my own accord removed the hairpin from my hair. A single long mane of naturally black curls tumbled down. Hair, too, is like a person, truly unusual. This consort is the daughter of Chong Wen-gong, Yuli, Yuzixing. Chong Wen-gong Yuli passed the triplicate exams at 17 and was appointed compiler in the Hanlin Academy. At 18 he was promoted to the Yusher Terrace. 3 years later he was transferred outside to serve in Tong District. He happened to encounter the Xiangliang Great Rebellion. Enemy agents stole the strategic maps and surrendered them to the Tujue. The admiral, fearing punishment, fled. The enemy was advancing, the garrison soldiers mutinied, the prefect, bringing his wife and infant children, jumped into a well to kill himself. Yuli ran from Tong District to relieve the place, vowing to fight to the death and not retreat. 3 days later, the relief army arrived, yet Yuli, bones scattered, flesh torn, had been trampled to death by the hooves of Tujue horses. Xiangliang was 3,000 li from the capital. The garrison forces protecting Xiangliang brought back Yuli's court robes. The common people set up shrines along 3,000 li of road, and the sound of weeping shook heaven. The late emperor personally came to pay his respects and posthumously bestowed the title of Chong Wen-gong. This was the Chong Wen-gong with such a sharp tongue he talked an imperial censor to death, as spoken in the emperor's mouth, this consort's father. I lifted my head and looked the emperor straight in the face, not even bothering to conceal my contempt. This consort begs the emperor to watch his words. The emperor used a finger to point at me. His shame and fury made his finger tremble uncontrollably. He opened his mouth twice. In the end, he said nothing, flicked his sleeve, and walked away. Fu Bao rushed to help me to my feet. Shinji also looked at me in concern. I smiled calmly and asked, "Where were we up to? What comes after Chinchunzi Gui?" Honestly, the son of Chen Gui is no longer what matters. The emperor no longer raised the matter of bringing Shinji home to be raised. In fact, because I stood on the highest ground of righteousness, he could not be angry with me, and so he had unleashed his fury on Wei Zhaoyi. I taught Shenji, do you know why he dared not be angry with me? Shenji was probably about to blurt out, because you are too fierce. Fortunately, he suppressed this dangerous thought. Because he cannot. The emperor can punish and humiliate concubines, but he absolutely cannot mock loyal subjects who sacrifice their lives for the country, unless he has already given up on himself and prepared to be a muddle-headed sovereign. This point I need not say too explicitly, Shenji has already grasped it. Because he learned things and then promptly applied them, and by year's end, when there was a severe cold snap, the prominent ladies all donated food and opened their granaries in relief as they did every year, with the Empress Dowager leading the way. The other ladies contributed money and effort, the wealthy could borrow if they had no money, and together they arranged a market. On that day, ladies of third rank and above gathered together in great liveliness. The moment I appeared with Shenji, everyone began to praise Shenji. They said he was fortunate, meaning he was chubby, and that he looked like me and was smart like the emperor. Heavens, I could not see how this little one resembled me in any way. Where would you find another mane of hair as unique as mine? Everyone simultaneously lost their memories and pretended Wei Zhaoyi had never existed. Of course, she had recently been reprimanded by the emperor and temporarily had no face to go promenading outside. After comforting everyone, they began to discuss how much grain each household would donate. About too much? The moment these words were spoken, the hall, which had been full of lively noise, fell instantly dead silent. I made a show of wanting to apologize. The Empress Dowager waved her hand, Jishi, do not. Your aim was good, but that does not mean you can ignore the rules. If you do a good thing without following the rules, then it cannot truly be considered a good thing. Do you understand? Shenji bowed his head in thought, then suddenly understood. I understand, Imperial Grandmother. It is like when this son first came to Shuyue residence. Because the officials wanted to look after this son well, the Office of Imperial Household Affairs sent many extra servants. This was meaning well, trying to do good. But noble consort Gi Nyang said this son was a prince, that there was a fixed number of attendants. More would be overstepping the rules, and so let the extra ones return. If at the time, out of complete well-meaning, the extra servants had been kept, this son would have become a prince who did not follow the rules, foolishly believing there were not enough servants, thinking that good intentions had produced bad results. Shenji, alarmed, patted his own head. Good thing noble consort Gi Nyang sent them away. The Empress Dowager looked at me, her eyes seemed to be asking, did you secretly coach him? I did not, do not talk nonsense. The moment these words ended, Xu Fei had already knelt to apologize. It is because this consort managed the rear palace poorly that such a thing happened. Shenji sat on the footstool, enduring the near-tangible hatred radiating from the eldest princess beside the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager also consoled Xu Fei. Xu Fei Nyang, this seat knows you meant well for this child. Thank you. But Jishi still wants to be a well-behaved child who follows the rules. Xu Fei's face went pale. Are you addicted? I am originally a small child. Small children should listen to grown-ups, shouldn't they? I, in a certain sense, am also a grown-up. This big already and still understanding nothing. Fubao, Granny Rong, we are leaving, no more playing with this silly one. Shenji, round and chubby, stood dazedly in the heavy snowfall. I had only walked away 2 steps when I was stopped by a woman in a silver fox fur coat. She was slender and tall with skin white as snow, bright eyes and elegant brows, a high straight nose, and tendrils of hair curling softly below the golden hairpin at her temples. She gently held her waist and bowed to me with extremely graceful posture. Aunt does not need to be so formal. I helped her up and studied her rounder face. She had gained some weight since I'd last seen her. I heard Aunt was pregnant, and already showing this much. Lu Shi smiled gently. Nyang Nyang is teasing me. After becoming pregnant, eating a little more, I'm afraid I've put on weight. How is the household? The imperial physician said my lord's old illness flared up less than usual this year. Second and third elder brother went to the Bailu Academy to study. They are not coming home for New Year's this winter. Fourth, fifth, and sixth elder brother have all grown considerably taller. Seventh elder brother has now begun his first lessons. Everything at home is well. Nyang Nyang need not worry. What about you, Zidu? Lu Shi hesitated. The eldest young master still refuses to come home. His temper is also getting bigger. Yu Zai, when did he become so studious? Aunt, just directly have someone go to Yenyu Pass and send couplets for the new year to those 3 smelly brats. Those 2 troublemakers will surely have gone off to find Uzita by now, and all the younger brothers no doubt even pooled money for the road. This consort will send someone to find them. No need, they've already scattered and gone. Lu Shi felt guilty. It is this consort who was not good, who did not properly teach the children. Aunt, all these matters, great-uncle already wrote of them in his letters sent to the palace. You came looking for me about something? Lu Shi was caught out. She smiled ruefully. Nyang Nyang is a talented person. This consort is just an ordinary woman. If not for the light of Biaoi, it would probably have been difficult to marry into a general's household. This consort has always wanted to repay Nyang Nyang. You looking after great-uncle so well is already the best repayment there is. Lu Shi gently stroked her belly, her eyes full of warmth. Finally she looked at me. The Lu family has intentions to send their daughter to enter the palace. I considered the meaning behind her words. What of it? If the Lu family wanted to send one, let them send one. Would I eat people? In spring next year the rear palace is designated to expand its selection. While there are not many high-ranked concubines in the rear palace, competing for a foothold is more difficult. Lu Shi had not expected me to say it like that. She stood stunned for a moment, then said, Nyang Nyang, this consort still thought that Nyang Nyang, she lowered her voice, is a person with great ambitions. Whether or not I have ambitions, what does that have to do with a young lady entering the palace? Lu Shi was completely at a loss. The cicadas of summer cannot understand the ice and snow. I patted Lu Shi's shoulder. Snow is falling and the road is slippery. Aunt, take my palanquin out of the palace, shall you? How could that be done? It can be done, it can be done. Shinji came running over. Nyang Nyang has just been promoted to vice director of the rear palace. Ordering a small palanquin for you is nothing. Besides, this lady is Nyang Nyang's grandaunt by marriage, also this palace's Biao grandaunt. If anyone dares refuse her a ride, this palace will personally carry her out. Let's see who would dare say anything behind our backs afterward. Shinji, when it came to charming women, was certainly gifted with innate talent. He charmed Lu Shi into leaving the palace in good spirits. Shinji extended his hand toward me. Nyang Nyang, let us go home. The snow fell heavier and heavier. I did not take his hand, because I saw, at the corner of the corridor, Wei Zhaoyi wrapped in a brilliant red evening cloak, watching me and Shinji with streaming tears. Shinji followed my gaze and also saw Wei Zhaoyi. Shall I not go to see her? Shinji turned his head and smiled at me. It was a smile, yet I felt he was in even more pain than the weeping Wei Zhaoyi. If I return now, she will be like a 3-year-old clutching gold and silver in the middle of a market. She will not be well. And I will not be well either. Shinji shook his head slightly. Why should it have to be this way? I reached out and lifted him up, wrapping him in my own cloak to cover his cold little body, walking slowly back to Shuiwei residence. Neither of us looked at Wei Zhaoyi again. Xu Fei managed the rear palace poorly. Considering the years of her hard work, the merits and demerits balanced each other out. She was penalized 1 year's salary as a warning, and stripped of her right to manage the rear palace. Control of the rear palace was to alternate between Xian Fei and noble consort Giyu. The golden seal of the palace, she who held the seal acted in the name of the Empress Dowager. The moment the Empress Dowager's decree came down, Xian Fei conveniently fell ill at just the right time. Shinji was utterly baffled as to why Xian Fei Nyang did not want to manage the rear palace. On his face was written the words, "Is she stupid?" Granny Rong brought warm goat's milk. I and Shinji each got a cup. The new year was approaching. It was the busiest time in the palace. Taking over the management of the rear palace at this moment meant reviewing account books, making purchases, revising the rules of Xu Fei's era, organizing grand and small banquets, sending reward gifts to the clans and relatives. Matter after matter, every single one could cost someone their skin. Not to mention that Xu Fei Nyang had no shortage of loyal servants in the rear palace during these years. As long as 1 or 2 people deliberately obstructed, Nyang might well be demoted by a rank. One could see that spending decades living in the palace made a difference. A single glance told the whole story. Nyang is inheriting a hot potato. What should we do? Shinji used all his considerable intelligence to come up with this approach. Even Fubao was made to turn away to hide her laughter. Shinji said angrily, "I am only 4 years old. I have not yet had my enlightenment. I forbid all you educated people to mock me." I set down my cup of goat's milk and gently massaged the pressure point at my temple. Shinji, next time when you encounter a problem and immediately only want to avoid it, I will no longer want you. I said this to Shinji smilingly, but Fubao and Granny Rong did not dare to laugh along anymore. Shinji looked at me with a resentful monkey ear expression, biting his lips and refusing to say anything. I held up the golden seal and swung it before Shinji. I dare accept this golden seal. I dare be the mistress of the rear palace. Can my son dare to be my son? I taught Shinji with reddened eyes as he shook his head. Shinji can only manage petty schemes to coax others. He is good at deceiving others but not at deceiving himself. That is not true strength. Truly strong people know clearly it is a mountain of knives and a sea of fire and can still charge straight through. Let me tell you how to charge. When I had just been brought back to the general's household by my great-uncle, our grandmother was still alive. Heirs, hiding in the rear palace. In the rear palace, a woman dressed in purple palace robes, wearing a golden crown, holding the golden seal, stepping forward. Gradually the face of the young lady in green and the woman in purple robes merged into one. A sharpness radiating from between her phoenix brows could not be concealed. Below the seating, large and small palace servants simultaneously knelt. Noble consort Gi Nyangnyang, may all be auspicious and as you wish. In the 9th year of the Tian Shu era, on New Year's Eve, a great banquet was held, ruler and subject celebrated together, welcoming the new year. I brought Shenji, both of us dressed splendidly, to attend the banquet. Since taking over the management of the rear palace, I had visibly grown thinner. The dark blue-green ceremonial robes that had once fit perfectly now hung loose as men's clothing. I used only a single white jade hairpin to secure my hair. At my waist I wore the golden seal. Apart from that, not a single other piece of jewelry. The moment she saw me, the Empress Dowager warmly praised me. Well done. You have been working hard lately, have you not? You've grown so thin. Quickly bring that bowl of snow swallow's nest to Zixing. The palace servants hurried to bring the bowl of snow swallow's nest the Empress Dowager had awarded. I thanked her and quickly ate it all. The Empress Dowager truly loved me. For this wretched banquet I had not yet managed to drink 2 sips of water today. And the Empress Dowager had already shown me such consideration. Naturally the ladies below competed to flatter. This banquet was so thoughtfully prepared. It is truly unexpected that noble consort Gi Nyangnyang could be so meticulous. Arranged carriages all the way from such a great distance from the imperial city. The parking arrangements truly most convenient and rare. And again choosing to hold the banquet beside the water pavilion, clouds and water together with the moonlight shining on each other, truly wonderful. Shenji held his small head high, his face full of pride, as though he himself were the one being praised. Xu Fei's complexion was noticeably worse. Under the thick layer of makeup she looked tired and old. After being punished, she no longer dared to pin her hair full of jewels as before, wearing only a phoenix coronet of filigree coral with small pearl earrings the size of cherries. Though Xu Fei had tried to dress simply, she was still far more resplendent than Xian Fei, who always looked as if in mourning. Xian Fei, after I had arranged the account books and cut off Xu Fei's network of influence, had quickly recovered from her illness. She rode a palanquin to come, wanting to share the golden seal with me. But within 5 days, Xu Taining had found evidence that Xian Fei had secretly swapped tribute goods and went before the emperor to report her. Xian Fei immediately fell ill again, straight through to New Year's Eve. And yet today she had recovered, surely thanks to my banquet being capable of curing illness. The banquet was already halfway through and the sky outside was gradually darkening, surely the fireworks were about to go off. I helped the Empress Dowager, and with Shenji we went outside with everyone. The other concubines all jostled to get closer to the emperor. Just imagine, fireworks blooming in the sky, the emperor watching the fireworks, and then glancing at you standing beside him. You would be like those fireworks, blooming in the emperor's heart. Well, anyway, everyone understood what I meant. But who could have expected that just as I had found a beautiful spot to hold Shenji up to watch the fireworks, the Empress Dowager had already grabbed hold of me. That's right, the Empress Dowager grabbed the collar of my ceremonial robe as though hoisting a pig, and dragged me over to the emperor's side. She forcefully broke through the encirclement of Wei Zhao-yi and Xu Taining, and placed my hand in the emperor's. The emperor stood dazed. I stood dazed. Both of us froze on the spot. Boom, the fireworks began. The emperor's face flashed red, then yellow, then green, then purple. Perhaps out of extreme awkwardness, the emperor stammered and asked, "Is your hair naturally curly like that?" I answered, "Yes." Ah. Ah. Not far away, Shinji was watching me, beating his chest and stamping his feet, looking deeply disappointed, an expression just like his imperial grandmother's. The emperor said again, "Perhaps tonight, Zhen, this consort wins." "Ah, Empress Dowager, quickly come and take your child away." The new year passed, and some surplus palace servants were allowed to go home. The atmosphere became much quieter. The Empress Dowager formally proposed expanding the rear palace. Xu Taining and Wei Zhaoyi gritted their teeth in fury. Even Xu Fei and Xian Fei, who had not been favored by the emperor even once in several years, were worried and anxious. The great families had long since been eagerly preparing, sending people to find jewelry and make new clothes, pulling strings to invite palace tutors to teach their daughters. The moment the Empress Dowager mentioned the matter, gold prices in the capital soared. The Empress Dowager wanted me to come up with a way to bring the prominent ladies and their daughters into the palace for a viewing. At this time, winter had just passed and spring had not yet arrived. The scenery in the palace was bare and sparse, nothing worth looking at. So I decided to organize a banquet of flowing water, drifting cups, right there in the warm pavilions. But who could have expected that just as I had found a beautiful spot to hold Shinji up to watch the fireworks, the Empress Dowager, that's right, the Empress Dowager grabbed the collar of my ceremonial robe as though hoisting a pig, and dragged me over to the emperor's side. She forcefully broke through the encirclement of Wei Zhaoyi and Xu Taining, and placed my hand in the emperor's. The emperor stood dazed. I stood dazed. Both of us froze on the spot. Boom, the fireworks began. The emperor's face flashed red, then yellow, then green, then purple. Perhaps out of extreme awkwardness, the emperor stammered and asked, "Is your hair naturally curly like that?" I answered, "Yes." Ah. Ah. Not far away, Shinji was watching me, beating his chest and stamping his feet, looking deeply disappointed, an expression just like his imperial grandmother's. The emperor said again, "Perhaps tonight, Zhen, this consort wins." "Ah, Empress Dowager, quickly come and take your child away." The new year passed, and some surplus palace servants were allowed to go home. The atmosphere became much quieter. The Empress Dowager formally proposed expanding the rear palace. Xu Taining and Wei Zhaoyi gritted their teeth in fury. Even Xu Fei and Xian Fei, who had not been favored by the emperor even once in several years, were worried and anxious. The great families had long since been eagerly preparing, sending people to find jewelry and make new clothes, pulling strings to invite palace tutors to teach their daughters. The moment the Empress Dowager mentioned the matter, gold prices in the capital soared. The Empress Dowager wanted me to come up with a way to bring the prominent ladies and their daughters into the palace for a viewing. At this time, winter had just passed and spring had not yet arrived. The scenery in the palace was bare and sparse, nothing worth looking at. So I decided to organize a banquet of flowing water, drifting cups, right there in the warm pavilions. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to Love Stories with Lisa for more stories. Thank you so much.